Good morning, ladies. How does this sound to you? I want to introduce our speaker today. We have the pleasure of having our missionary speak to us and tell us a little bit about her life in Colombia. Because you know, she said to me, what would you like me to talk about? And I said, well, they'd love to hear your testimony about what the Lord's done in your life. And I also told her, they'd like to know what you do. and so it's my pleasure to introduce to you Sharon Wheeler. And listen, you can stand, but now you make sure that you've got this right in front of you because they do. Yes,
And I just changed that to the correct time. Is that going to be the correct time?
No,
It was at 9:15 when I looked at it. So
yeah, it's about right.
You'll wave at me if I should stop?
That's right. You're going to go. You're going to be fine.
Tim, are you giving me the changer or? Oh, you're just testing it out, okay. Okay. My husband and I are missionaries to Bogota, Colombia, and we're with ABWE, and hopefully I'll be able to speak. And but anyways, just to start off with my testimony, Tim has the picture of Saugerties Church up there in the little corner. But when I was about 13 years old, my parents brought us to the Saugerties Christian Academy, wanted us to attend there at the school, and that was my first time going to the Baptist church, and it was wonderful for me to hear that people could know for sure that they were going to go to heaven one day. I didn't understand it. I started going to the church there, and they were, well, I would say as I watched people in the church, I could see that there was a difference in their lives. I didn't really know what it was. I think I saw they had a peace, a joy that my family didn't have, but I didn't know what it was. And thank you. Thank you. And
I'll try this a little bit to the side, so when you turn to see the slides, you're not pointed away from the microphone.
Okay. And as I started going to church there, you know, I've been thinking back as to some of the memories that made it so special. As I started Sunday school at the church, Vera Wager was my Sunday school teacher. She was the one that always greeted me, so happy that I was there, so excited to see me. And I remember thinking, I don't think I was that terrible of a student, but I don't ever remember a teacher being that happy to see me. To see me before, and it was just such a blessing, you know, being in her class and her so excited to see our class each morning as we got there, and each Sunday morning as we got there. And also during that time, Mom Wheeler was the secretary at the church, and she'd made friends with me and had told me if there was ever a time that I had questions about what I was learning there at the academy or the church, that she was always there. Well, during the Christmas break, the church youth group went to a special retreat. Like, we had some special fun snow thing that we went sledding and all of that. But it was during that retreat that I realized that it wasn't just attending the Christian academy or the church, but that I needed to make my own personal decision. And but anyways, I didn't completely understand. I understood somewhat, and the truth was I was too shy to speak to anyone at the retreat and tell them I wasn't saved because I thought no one knew. And, so I waited till I got home, and I called Mom Wheeler, and she came over that day and just went through verses like Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, that is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. I needed to understand things. I always thought it was by works, because I always grew up thinking you had to be a good person to go to heaven. And of course, even as a little girl, I always wondered, was there this point that you weren't good enough anymore? Did you disobey your parents one too many times, and now, you can't go to heaven? I remember even as a little girl being concerned about that. Where was that point if you just had to be good enough to go to heaven? So I accepted Christ that day. Hi. I was only able to stay in the academy for 2 years. My dad had lost his job, and we needed to go back to public school. But so I would say, teenage years was kind of an up and down. And though Mom Wheeler was someone to continually call me, check out, was I coming to church, challenge me with discipleships and memorizing verses and things like that. So I was continuing to grow, through those teenage years. And then when it was time to choose to go to a college, everyone was encouraging me, try BBC, They probably wouldn't even accept me if I tried. But of course, when I put in my application and wrote my testimony and all of that, I was so nervous. And I'm sorry, I was trying to think what was my next slide. I was so excited when I got to go to BBC, when I got my acceptance letter, and I went away for elementary education. And it was during the first year at BBC. Ooh, dear, that was fast. Okay, so I'm not good at this. Okay, there was we had a chapel where the speaker challenged us from Isaiah 6. And he said, I don't know what the Lord has for you. He said, it may be to go across the street and witness to your neighbor. It may be to go across the world and even witness in another language. He said, I don't know what the Lord has for you, but I do know that he wants us to be willing to say to him, here am I, send me. And it was at that conference that I was there for elementary ed, and I thought, Lord, if you want me to teach on a foreign field, I could do that. And so I went forward with that idea in mind, and just said to the Lord at that time, I didn't really even have an idea of South America or Africa or Europe or anything like that. I just knew that I wanted to do whatever the Lord had for me to do. And the following year is when Tim came away to school. And now I had known Tim at the church. We had done lots of ministries together with children's church and bus ministry and those kind of things. In fact, Tim made me teach my first lesson in children's church one day. He was teaching the Bible story, and he said, why don't you teach the Eager Beaver story at the end? Some of you might remember Eager Beaver. And it would teach like a Christian character lesson. And so anyways, he walked out of the room to check on the time. I told it so fast that that I could be done before he got back, and he wouldn't hear me tell this story. And so of course he came back after and had to fill in the rest of the time because church was still going and I'd finished the story so quickly. But that was my first attempt at teaching. And but over the years, of course, he did give me other opportunities. And I, learned more and more about serving in the church. And so even as he came away to BBC, we continued serving together in various different children's ministries and street visitation and nursing home. And 2 years after is when we got married at First Baptist. And and from that time on, I can say that we've just always enjoyed serving the Lord together, and And it was the following year. Oh, that'll just pop up. How nice, thank you. My tech person, I have a tech person. Yes, I see. Okay, so in 1986, as part of Tim's missions program, we went to Colombia. We, oh, wait a second, yeah. Tim had always been interested in Venezuela before this, and, but they didn't offer a MAP program, a missionary apprenticeship program, that summer. And, but he had always been interested in South America, and so when they said Colombia, and truthfully, it was one of the cheaper mission programs for that summer, we're college students, yes, that's the place. And so that was really how we ended up choosing Colombia. And then as we arrived in Bogota, I don't know what we were expecting. I don't think we were expecting the big city that we landed in, but you know, of course, you're on a missions trip. Everything is so exciting. You're in a big city. This was one of the churches that they had us go to. I'll show another picture of that in a minute, but that was the Molinos Church, the Calvary Baptist Church. And the missionaries, you know, did all the things with us, translating our testimony, which I'm sure was quite painful to listen to as we read it in Spanish, not really knowing too much Spanish. And, but we got to go around and visit some of their different ministries there in Bogota, just doing various little things that we could do without being able to speak Spanish. One of the things, we went down into Villavicencio, which is just down the mountain from the city. Johnny and Susan worked there, though this is an older picture of them because their plan in Colombia was to have an aviation ministry. And then, you know, so he went through Piedmont and pilot license and all those things, and yet when they were getting ready to go to Colombia, they said, you can't, you know, ride a plane around, a small plane especially in Bogota, in Colombia, you know, just it's dangerous. We've got all our drug runners and they could, you know, mistake you, you know, for that also. And so they ended up having to, after that time of preparation, I always thought it was, you know, so neat to understand their love for Colombia that he gave up this, you know, pilot ministry that he was looking forward to, went to Villavicencio, and then, which is where we met them. They had a small son and daughter at the time that I loved playing with. And, but anyways, they were there, and when we got to Colombia over 10 years later, they had to move up to Bogota because it was not safe enough in Villavicencio. And, you know, now almost 20 years later, my son went on a trip down to Villavicencio with his wife for their anniversary thing. And so it's safe again. So it's kind of just to say, you know, you're always keeping a mind as to where you can go in Colombia, the areas that are safe and the areas that are not safe. But they just a wonderful testimony. Also part of our missions trip was going down to the Amazon, taking a trip down the river, seeing other places along the river. Of course, this was kind of where our missions trip ended. Some of you know Tim got appendicitis when we were down by the Amazon. It was too close to bursting, so we couldn't fly back to Bogota. So in the little hospital down by the Amazon, he had his appendix out. And afterwards, the missionaries had told us that they were so sad that all of that had happened to us. The missionary that was with us went on to do our program with the other young man that was there, and I was making my way back and forth to the hospital, and which wasn't a good thing. Just trying to figure out taxis and money and all of that. But the missionaries had said that they were afraid that after having such a difficult, you know, they said, oh, we lost that young couple, you know. They were so excited that a young couple was, you know, interested in coming to Colombia there, and they said, now that they've gone through this, they'll never come back, you know. And but for me, it was, you know, just realizing that the Lord would take care of us wherever we were, at a little hospital down by the Amazon, with ants crawling all over the observation room. But it was, but Tim had no infections. I mean, the doctors back in the States laughed at the huge, stitches that he had in his stomach, but there was no problems with it. I mean, everything was fine. And so, we just praised the Lord and taking care of us wherever we were at. And so we graduated from college and moved to Florida, where Tim's parents had moved while we were at, while we were still finishing college. And that was when we had Amy, Tim, and Joshua. Joshua was the baby in my arms, and Tim's mom had made me and Amy, at least those little outfits to, just as the whole time, we're paying off school loans, but we're thinking towards, getting to go to Columbia and having a ministry there. We were, of course, even as we went to ABWE, we went with our hearts open, but we felt like that was where the Lord had for us. One of the missionaries from Columbia had asked me, what are you guys waiting for when we were at language school, to decide? And I said, I don't know, maybe a lightning bolt just that says, this is the place for you. So he drew us one and put it on our door so we could have it. Say we got our lightning bolt and decided. And so, anyways, as we were in Florida, Tim's brother Chris wanted to start a church, which was a blessing for us to be involved in starting a church, thinking that we're going to Columbia to start churches and had never actually started one before. We'd been involved in lots of churches, and Spring Hill had been a wonderful experience for us in Florida. Tim was deacon, and we just did all different kinds of ministries. So, we had some good experiences there, but starting a church was a blessing for us, and of course they started supporting us, but still we were trying to decide what should we do as missionaries in getting started, because as we had started to visit churches, everyone wanted to know, when are you quitting your job? Now ABWE said, keep your job until you have enough support, and then you can quit and continue on, get enough support to take care of your family. Well, every church wants to know, so when are you going to step out on faith and stop working? And so, every missionary has that difficulty to try and think through, when should we do this? Well, Pastor Dragula was the one to say, if you want to come up to New York and live in the house next to the church, then, you don't have the, having to pay for a home, for your, rent and all of that. And so that's what started us off to do our ministry. And this is probably about the age that my kids were as we came up. I've been searching through pictures this week, trying to find what we had here with us and not in Columbia. But I just remember Joshua was just turning 3 years old when we moved up to Saugerties. And that was just such a wonderful time for us as we were able to be involved in Saugerties Church, but also, as we went out, we said yes to anybody that asked for vacation Bible school or kids clubs or, of course, meetings at the church. And even Carol Hummel Morris went on some of the VBSs with us, and that was so fun. And people in the church helped us along the way. And but I have to tell, if I can tell without crying, that there was one day, when we were trying to get things ready to go and visit a church, but we were going to be in the car all day long. I'd already made sandwiches. We usually stopped at some kind of rest area, and Tim chased the children around to get the wiggles out. And so, they always looked forward to that. But I wanted a treat for in the car. Now, that's not a real spiritual thing. That's not, it wasn't that we needed a treat. But it's just, I always tried to find something, for the kids in the house. And it was that day I was just like, and I'm talking to the Lord, and I think I'm kind of complaining and saying, that, we're going off to, to serve in this church, and I can't even find any kind of a cookie in the house or anything, for just helping in the long ride that day. And as I'm complaining and praying and talking to the Lord about it, Peggy shows up at my door. And she had a plate of fudge in her hand. And she said somebody had brought her 2 plates of fudge, and they couldn't possibly eat. Could we, would we like to have that plate of fudge? And, now we've been given, help in various ways throughout the years, and there's never been a day that's meant as much to me as that day, because no, I was feeling so emotional that day, and it was just so neat to me. I hugged Peggy, but as I closed the door and cried, and just thanked the Lord that, that He cared about little things like fudge for my kids. And let me tell you, that was the best fudge I think we've ever had. It was soft, it was sweet, it was so delicious. And, and I have to say that I think that even has influenced me. I'm kind of known as the cookie lady in Bogota. And I'm always thinking, when I can make a treat for somebody, when I know, that they're, or a dinner, or whatever, that I want to be a blessing, to people also. And, but anyway, so that was just one of my best memories of Prefield ministry. And also as we traveled around, the nice thing is when you've got your kids with you, they're always doing the cute little things and singing, and, now it's Tim and I, we're not quite as exciting. But when we were traveling around with the kids, they had memorized this verse, and it was always so sweet. They'd do their little song, and they'd say their verse, and because a lot of times people would ask us about, you're going to Colombia, to Bogota, and that's so scary, and should you take your kids there, and, maybe wait until they're older and just go, you and your husband, those kind of ideas. And so the kids always finish their little presentation with the verse, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you. And then they yelled, wherever you go. That's how they always ended their verse. I think they were so happy to have made it to the end of the verse. But anyways, that's something I think that's stayed with all of us through the years, that wherever we go, the Amazon or in Bogota, we do try and be extra careful in Bogota and places we go. There's places in the city that Tim will go for car parts or computer things that he won't take me because I stand out more than he does. And so we do try and be careful, but we trust that, the Lord is with us wherever we go. And so this is us arriving. We arrived in Colombia on September 4th, 2001. And that was the day we arrived. We planned for September 11th for all of our belongings to come out of the States. Of course, we were buying things like couches and beds in Colombia, but the missionaries had told us mixers, blenders, those kind of things were very, very expensive. 3-4 times the price, I guess, at the time, and that we should bring those with us. So anyways, we had, come in the plane on September 4th, and on September 11th, all of our stuff was supposed to fly out of the States, which of course was canceled on that day. And we were supposed to be going to sign our rental contract on that day, and instead we all sat and looked at the TV. We were late because nobody could take their eyes off, what was going on in the States. And I just remember that as being real difficult too. One of the newscasters said, the United States will never be the same. And just having been in another country at the time, when you're hearing that, it was much, but, it was just very emotional at the time. But just to say that the blessing of that time is my things coming out of the States is not an important thing. I mean, it's not like the stores that are needing, their supplies and I'm sure many other important things that are being flown into Colombia. It was about a week, I think, and our things came in. And we thought it'd be like a month, or we were afraid longer. But everything came through pretty quickly, and that was a sweet blessing as we were getting started. And as I showed you before, the church that was just starting when we were there on our missions trip, is now Calvary Baptist Church, and they are a more established, mature church, and the missionaries wanted us to go and work in that church as our first year of, getting used to Colombia. And Pastor Jairo and his wife Sandra were in that church, and they've become wonderful friends of ours. But it's so neat how the Lord, puts you in where you need to be. And Pastor Jairo had asked me, would you work with the kids with craft time? Their church divides everything up. You have your room you go into for your story time and your music time and your craft time and activity time. And so anyways, I got put in the craft room. That's my place. And and so anyways, and I started doing what we always do in crafts here in the States, is you find something that goes along with the story or the verse, and we make our craft out of that. And so, of course, I did things like this. This is for John 3:16. And but as I got there, they were doing, in this church, they were doing Mickey Mouse, like Disney ceramic things. I have to not touch that, don't I? They were doing Disney ceramic things, and the pastor was so excited about my craft, because I think they thought of crafts before as just something pretty. And of course, I was worried if my thing was pretty enough, because they're so good at crafts. And but anyways, he was so excited. And you're a new missionary on the field. You don't really feel like you're that useful. I mean, you're trying to find your place. And he made such a big deal at the time about my crafts, wanted each of the teachers to spend time working in craft class with me so they could see how to make, crafts to go along with the story. And so anyways, that was a really sweet blessing for me. I also found that I didn't have many pictures of my children. They're back in Colombia. But I just wanted to say that, through the years that they were on the field with us, it was just a lot of fun working along with them. And they dressed up as clowns. And what's really funny is we sent them out in the neighborhood where our El Camino church was, and they'd walk around the neighborhood in their clown outfits and talk to the kids. And being Americans, they were interesting too, but they would have a whole group of kids following them back to the church. And, and I thought, can you imagine if you're if your kid's following this, these clowns back, and they'd come into the church, and I'd be like, does your mom know you're here? Does your mom know? But no one had gotten upset, and I think most people knew us in the neighborhood, and us being there is, was a talk. Even the different places where we lived, people told us that they didn't actually need our address. You just had to ask where the gringos lived. And most people knew where that was. The people in our neighborhood would know where we were. So, but anyways, Amy and Tim and Josh, they were just a sweet blessing, helping in classes. And Tim really missed their moving skills, helping us to move things, and even setting up for church and all those things. But just to show some of the different ministries we've been involved in over the year, and then I'll tell you what we've been doing this year. But this was working at the orphanage, and at one of the churches that we did, that says on the back of our shirt, Fundación por un Mundo Nuevo, Foundation for a New World. And there was a girls' orphanage and a boys' orphanage. We tried to get in the boys' one, and they just kept saying they had so many sports activities that we couldn't come in. And but it was so much fun working with the kids, and we'd had story time. I think the most important time to them was just sitting and talking with them, spending time with them. We played games with them and brought special snacks. And here's one of the girls telling her memory verse to me. I, kept track of their memory verses in my notebook, and we had prizes and things to encourage the girls along. We had quite a few of the girls come to know Christ as their Savior, and that was a blessing. I love working with the teenagers. Each of my churches, I've done the ministry of doing cookies with them. This, we're getting ready for a special kids club, but at Christmas we always make the shape cookies and decorate them, and that's why I'm the cookie lady. And but anyways, it was just a lot of fun to work with the teenagers, and on this day, Tim had made the mistake of asking, when are the cookies getting done? And they attacked with the, with the flour. But we always had a really good time with the teenagers. And then we took their cookies, and this was a special kids' day that we were having that week. And I just wanted to involve the teens with, getting things ready for that. And, they helped with games, and different people in the church helped with stories. And those were just fun outreach times that you can involve your whole church in. I usually tried to work with a teenager in each of my, or some young person in each of my churches that I worked with. Valentina has to be one of my favorite girls that, she seemed so scared the first time I asked her to come into church with me. And usually, I let them help. I, give them a story, verse to do it first, maybe a game. Work our way up to a story. She is the best teacher. By the time I left the church, she was doing the children's class, and she was just one of the best teachers that I've worked with, and she just loved the children, and that's pretty much the key that that you're looking for, is people that just love children and want to work with them, and she was excellent with the children. And this is my El Camino ladies. That was our first church, but this was just one of the visits I'd made back to the church. I'd gone to speak at a special conference they had, but we do the best crafts in Colombia. Somebody else planned this craft, I didn't, but we all got bags to decorate, and it is, in Colombia at least, it is our biggest draw for a ladies' day. Is you're going to do, you advertise the craft. This is what we're going to do. And they'll get their neighbors, their friends, their family to come along with them. And, when we do a special craft like that. And this was one I did with my Fontibon church that we're working in now, as we were just starting. Now, this is something I got from ladies in the States, and I don't remember which church, but I was in a church, and they were just showing me how they made these, and it's just a piece of material, and the craft is to cut the strips along the side. We have the stuffing, and then all they're doing is tying, which is great because I can sew some, but I'm not the greatest. Venona Bergman tried with me, but I was a tough case. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in front of this again. I was a tough case to teach to sew. But anyways, this was just tying all around the sides, and the ladies loved it. And so anyways, I've always looked when we're at churches to see what crafts you're doing. And so just as an idea, if you do a craft in the church, even to share with your missionaries. Obviously sometimes the materials might be something we can't get there, but material and stuffing, we can get there. And and the lady on the end had the little frog pillow that she made because she just had that baby, and she was so excited about that. But I think the church had sent me with the frog material. I bought some of the other material in Colombia. But this is also, the pastors' wives in Bogota, we all get together once a month, and we have Bible study and prayer, for ourselves, our churches. Once in a while we've done a craft, not so usually, but usually we're making plans. We have a Feminario, a ladies' meeting that happens every year in first Monday of November is always the meeting. And so we spend time planning that and giving our churches all jobs to do in that. But anyways, this is a sweet time of fellowship with these ladies as we all get together, share our hearts, and encourage each other. And now the other ministry that I do a lot in Colombia is teach English. And you can see my little sign, somewhat, I am, you are, he is. And this was in the first apartment complex we lived in Fontibon, and that's the community room, and they just let me use, usually if you're going to have a party or something you pay, but they let me use that because they wanted me to teach the children English. Of course, I don't charge to teach English, and so we had a good time having the kids come out. Here they're learning parts of the body and the girls won. I don't know if you can tell their faces are happy around the girls, but they won that game. And in naming, head, arm, leg, and they had to just run up quickly with their papers and put them on. And also, we had a Christmas program that year, and that was one of the funnest things I think that we've done. I mean, of course, I do a Christmas program with the church, every year, but this was with my English class, and we were reading the story of Luke 2 in Spanish, but the children had parts to say in English, and the angels. Glory to God in the highest, and so the parents were just thrilled to get to hear them, speak in English. And my little girl was so scared when she, walked up with baby Jesus, and she threw him into the manger and just to, I don't know, put him down quickly or something, which of course sent everyone into hysterics that this little girl did that. But anyways, it was a neat outreach in our conjunto, in our apartment complex, and I've always enjoyed teaching English. Marissa came to be with us for her first year on the field, and she worked alongside, and we just so appreciated her working with our teenagers and being a part in that. But that's a blessing when you get to be a part helping a new missionary on the field as they get adjusted to being in Colombia. And afterwards, she was going to Medellin to start their ministry. I was going to tell you more about that after, but that's Peter and Jamie and Heidi and Marissa, and they're starting a counseling center. They're all in the midst of taking counseling courses and getting ready for that, but that's their goal for Medellin. They like to reach a lot of the young women with getting pregnant and not choosing abortion, and also family counseling services, and also this is Kim Verdu. If you know Ralph and Donna Verdu, their daughter came. They're their church in Hopewell Junction, and anyways, their daughter wanted to come for a missions time, and so we've had a number of kids over the years that have come to stay with us, and she's helping in an English class, and she really came along pretty quickly in her Spanish, but she loved helping in English class. That's just showing our church, one of our days at camp, and this is the church building that we had. For a couple years, we ended up having to give up our church building. Tim actually cut away that doorway. They gave us permission. There was only a door there before, and they cut it so we could use both sides of the room for the church as we were growing. And that's just to show my darlings, and as they do a presentation at church. But the people were so good to us, and they even rented the rooms across the hall from there so I could have a children's Sunday school room. And so that was a very big blessing. But when COVID happened and you had to, you couldn't go to church. You couldn't go to birthday parties. You couldn't do anything that. But anyways, we could not keep paying for a church that we could not use. So the first month or two, first couple months, I guess, we did pay, thinking this was surely going to end. And when it didn't, we took our stuff and stored it in another church, and which really helped because our people were in such need during Corona, people that couldn't work. We have people that sell things on the street. Of course, they couldn't go out. And so, our church was more in a position to be able to help people because we weren't paying rent or services or anything. And but also we were involved at a nursing home. It's a wonderful thing for like Renee, the man with his hand up, he was always a little bit shy about, doing anything in the church. When he got working in the nursing home, he just took off. He loves to share the gospel with the older people there. And we go in and have songs and bring a special snack for them. And we have 2 different nursing homes we go into. We have not been allowed back in yet. We're hoping that soon that they would allow us back in. And that's just showing another picture of our friends there. This was kind of the beginning of COVID for us. I think I heard the same thing happen with the toilet paper here, that it all disappeared off the shelves. You can see every cart has these huge things in them, but this is and as we were in line, I thought, we're never going to find how to make our way through to get to the registers, but really they had everything set up pretty well in there, and it probably took about an hour to get up there, but really wasn't too bad. And just the very strange thing, you never see an empty street in Bogota. You never see an empty street. So it was very strange to walk around and see empty streets, especially when it was the strict lockdown. And we weren't allowed to leave the house except for 2 hours a day. Children could not go into stores at all. I don't remember how long that was for, but older people weren't supposed to go out. Those of us with asthma were supposed to not go out. But of course, they didn't ask you if you had asthma. But sometimes I have trouble coughing. And so you can imagine with COVID, you do not want to cough. So anytime you're out, you're trying your best not to. But it was very difficult at times. Our people just were so loving and concerned for each other, checking on who had food, did anybody need help. This was our missionary, Tim said I could play with this. There it is. That's Bibiana Moreno. A number of our churches in Bogota support Bibiana to work in Medellin. She works some with Marissa and the other missionaries. They're at a different church, but anyways, they were all concerned about Bibiana because some of our churches were suffering, couldn't send their support to Bibiana, and they're like, can we help her more? Can we help her? Oh my, it's time. And, okay. And this was my friend Mabel that's been with us since probably the beginning of Fontibon, and she wants to, in her retirement, go and work with Marissa and them in the counseling center. So I've just started, mostly during this pandemic, her and I have had more time to meet together, more on the computer, to go through her counseling courses with her. She just was very nervous about getting started. She wanted to do this, but so her and I have been going through counseling together to get her ready to help there. Tim, I think we'll talk more about, we did go and go out to our camp to have some church services because just such a big area, we could meet out there. And when it was not in strict quarantine, you were allowed to go out and meet. One of the other very big blessings was our ladies group, because everybody, of course, was so lonely. When we couldn't get out, we couldn't see people. We started meeting to do Bible studies. I just loved our Elizabeth one more than all. They were meeting every 2 weeks, but there was all these questions you had to answer, and some of my ladies just could not answer the questions, and they were, at the beginning of our thing, they were a little frustrated. So I started meeting twice a week with them to go through the book to answer questions, and then at the end of that, like we met on Tuesdays, and then every 2 weeks on Friday, we met with Doris. They did more of a summary of the lesson. And it was just a really neat time. Just my ladies got so close during these times of just meeting together quite a bit to study God's Word. And this is what church looked like. And did you do this? Okay. Now, some of my people have more trouble with their internet. If they put their picture on, they lose their internet. So some of us can show our faces, some of us can't. This was actually when Tim and I were back home. If you see our grandson Emmett is there. And we were able to go home and see our two babies that were born last year in October, Carson and Mason. And we were in Florida, but of course still leading church in Columbia. So that was neat. And just, you have to show the kids, just to finish, Amy and Ryan with their sons Emmett and Carson, and they just love serving in their church together. And what I really love about that is that Emmett has just so much grown to love his church, and they said that the volunteers cheer when Emmett walks in because They have all this set up to do for church, and they have to tape down the cords and stuff to make sure people don't trip, and it's his job to come in and pull all the tape up, which is, so hard for us adults to and so they cheer as he walks in, and he loves to serve at church. I just want that for all of my kids. They will love to serve at church. Tim and Rachel live in Bogota with us right now. This was for her birthday this past year. But anyways, they're moving to Sogamoso. It's 3 hours away. But Tim can go outside. Her family, she already has family that lives there, and I love that her family loves my son. So we're going to go back in December and help them make their move out to Sogamoso. And that's Josh and Abby and their little boy Mason. And they had been attending the same church from when they met at Clearwater Christian College and was attending a Keystone Bible Church. And then Keystone started their own church, which Josh and Abby have just started at. It's the daughter church of Keystone, and so I'm kind of excited to them being part of that, church getting started with Keystone. And that picture was actually from this summer, and look how big he seems, so big. But anyways, he has a secret because he's got a new brother on the way. And so they just found out last month that they have another baby on the way, and I'm just very excited for them. But anyways, thank you for praying for us. We really appreciate your prayers as we go back. We're hoping, well, I think Tim might be telling this after, but we're hoping to be able to open our church again. Since we need to rent a place, some of our churches have started to open, but they have their own buildings, and they have a PJ, which means that they can get permission to meet. If we went into one of the community rooms that, apartment complex or wherever we rented from could be fined very heavily. So, of course, they won't let us. So, anyways, we appreciate your prayers that we could start up again in church. Of course, everybody's missing seeing each other. Getting vaccines was much harder. We waited till we got home to get ours, but the lines were 5-6 hours long to get a vaccine. And but they said a lot of Colombia is vaccinated now, or at least a lot of people in Bogota. And so anyways, they're hoping that we're going to open soon. And I just appreciate your prayers because we really want to meet together. So, but thank you.